Hi there, I'm Budda and you're watching Dr. Guitar, a show for all you guitarists out there. In today's episode, I'm talking about cables. Do expensive cables sound better? Did you know guitar cables have a huge role in guitar tone? I bring you a lot of cables. In this episode, I'm comparing guitar cables and I'm comparing them in different situations. So I'm plugging in my Epiphone Casino, which is a very dark guitar, and I'm plugging in my Tele, which is a very bright guitar. Playing the Casino with a clean tone, playing the Tele with a little overdriven tone. Using my Mesa Boogie Transatlantic TA30 on the clean channel and on the dirty channel. I'm using 8 different cables and I'm showcasing 8 different cables. I want to give a big thanks to David Laboga for sending me a special guitar cable, this beautiful one. I want to thank Arda Audio for sending me 2 great Van Damme cables, this Silver Series and this one. So 2 great guitar cables, Van Damme cables. I want to thank Lava Cable for the great cables, the Lava Ultramafic and the Lava Retrocoil, 2 of my favorite cables. I want to thank Sinasoid cables for sending this beautiful cable. And I'm showing you also the Monster cable. This one I bought for myself because I wanted to do the testing. Do expensive cables sound better than cheap cables? No and yes. Or if better yet, yes and no. First of all, I would like to thank my patrons, Daniel Hodges, Rui Grillo, and Phil Preston. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you want to become a patron, just go to my Patreon page. It's very simple. Follow the steps. You can also support this channel by donating via PayPal. And don't forget to subscribe. Leave the thumbs up if you like the episode. Simple gestures make a lot of difference. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the episode. Better in music is not an universal truth. So what's better for me might not be better for you. The goal of this episode is to try to show you cables have a sound. You might like one cable better than another, and it doesn't matter if the cable is expensive or it isn't. Usually, more expensive cables have better sound characteristics, but sometimes you're not looking for great sound characteristics. For example, Carlos Santana uses a huge long cable to cut off some highs of his guitar tone because he likes it like that. So I have cables here like the David Laboga one or the Lava Ultramafic that claim they lose no high end or virtually no high end. So for Carlos Santana, for example, those wouldn't be the cables. I actually use my Lava Cable Retrocoil because it takes off a little of the high end and gives me a little in the low mid range. But with dark guitars like my BNG Crossroads Little Sister or my humbucker guitars like my PRS DGT or Les Paul, it's too dark. And it took me a while to understand that sometimes that's not the right cable. Even with my GNL, since it has the magnetic field pickups, it's too dark. With my Variax, James Tyler Line 6 Variax, it's too dark, the coily cable. So I think there's a cable for every situation, and I like to have a lot of different options, especially in the studio where I can change it. But even live, I prefer to have a cable attached to that guitar, and I know that cable works on single coil guitars, for example. So live, I use the Retrocoil Lava cable, which is a coily cable. It's a cable that loses some high end and gives me a little mid-range. It compresses a little, so it works great with my Tele, with my Nags, with every of my single coil guitars. But whenever I move to a P90 or to a humbucker guitar or to my BNG, it sounds too dark. So I need another cable, a brighter cable. And a great option would be, for example, the Van Damme cable or the David Laboga cable, or the Sinasoid cable, or the Ultramafic cable. And all these cables are expensive, or at least they are not cheap, but they all have different characteristics. So you will have to understand what's the best cable for you and not the best cable in the world, because there's no such thing. There are great cables as this one. I have like 4 great cables here. The Damme, the David Laboga, the Sinasoid, and the Ultramafic lava cable. They are all great cables, all different. So you will prefer one to another. It's like preferring a Mesa Boogie to a Fender Twin. They are just different. You might like one better than the other. In this episode, I will be comparing cables. I will be showing you cables with different guitars, different cables, the same part played in the same guitar, same amp setup, just changing the cable so you can hear it. But I will change guitars also so you can know the difference. I found this truth when I went to a festival. I was playing with Budda Power Blues Experience Project with Maria João, the singer, and we went to play in Bons Sons, a festival here in Portugal, last summer. I forgot my cables. I took everything. I took my Bassman, my Tele, my Jimmy Page Tele. I was premiering the Tele in a show. It was the first time I played live with the Tele. I forgot my cables. I plugged into the amp and it was terrible. The high end was killing me. I could not play the guitar. I tried to cut a little of the tone. I tried a lot of things. I cut all the treble on the Bassman. I cut a lot of things. It didn't matter. It was sounding terrible. I went back and I got my coil cable and it was all solved. I tried to solve it with the Nobles of the Mini, cutting off the tone. It solved a little, but it's not the same thing. And the cable saved my life. But for example, I've hated guitars. I think they sounded too muddy, too mushy. And that was because I was playing with my lava cable Retrocoil. It was darkening it too much for my taste on that specific guitar. So that's the reason why I came with the idea of making the episode comparing cables. So the thing I think you should get out of this episode is that there's a cable for each and every one of you, and it's probably a different cable from what I choose and from what you know. But cables do make a difference. They do really make a difference, especially the first cable, the one that leaves your guitar. So I'm comparing cables, plugging them straight to the amp, no pedals, nothing in between, one microphone into my transatlantic Mesa Boogie T30 with a 110 cabinet speaker mic'd with my favorite neutral microphone, the Biodynamic M160, and I hope this is helpful to you. So I'm starting with my Epiphone Casino. It's a dark guitar. I'm starting with a lava cable. Let's move on with all the cables so you can check how it sounds. So this is a dark guitar. I'm playing a riff. Change cable. The David Laboga cable is the only cable directional, so this should be going out of the guitar. This is going into the amp. Let's plug it in. So if I only have these 2 cables, you immediately know there's a difference from one cable to another, right? Let me move on to the Sinasoid. Okay, this is, to me, a little less high-endy than the David Laboga. Less hyped. I think the David Laboga has some brightness, some sizzling, which I really like. I really like the natural thing about it. This is one of my oldest cables, the Ultramafic cable, a very expensive. It's the most expensive of them all. So let's listen to it. This beautiful, beautiful silvery cable. This is the Silver series, the most expensive of the two I have here. Okay. Let's listen to the less expensive series of Van Damme cables. So this one here, the Van Damme normal series. They call it pure silver too, pure silver plated. And this has a great thing. It has a plug, a nitric plug, that immediately turns off the cables. So if I plug it into the amp, no sound, but if I push it in, okay, so this is great. Putting the cable in and taking it out, no noise, huh? Great. This is a great thing. The nitric silent plug is a great thing. I think I'll add this one to some of my cables because it's very easy to change guitar on stage or even at home. This is a Fender high-end cable. Let's plug it in. Let's see how this sounds. Let's listen to all the cables back to back. I won't say which cable is, and I will leave it on at the end of the episode. I will tell you which one is the cable. Try to figure out which one that you prefer. Let's see how this sounds. So this is the telly I was telling you about when I went to the festival, I took this tele. This is a bright, bright tele. So I usually prefer this one with my coily cables. Coily cables tend to have darker sound. But I have here three different coil cables I can show you so you can figure out, because not all coil cables are the same. But let's do the same test as we did with the other guitar, with the Casino. And I'm playing the Mesa Boogie through the Vox AC30 channel, a little distorted. It's immediately the perfect cable. I'm very, very curious to hear the David Laboga and the Ultramafic with this tele, because I never tried it. This is a cable that really has some brightness, some high end, but it's usually a beautiful high end, not a harsh high end. Let's compare it to the highest, the most expensive cable in here. With this guitar, I would like to compare the three coily cables. So I have three coily cables. I have the lava cable Retrocoil, which is my normal and faithful cable for a long time. The Monster cable, coily cable, which is way less expensive. And the Fender, I don't know if this is in production anymore, but it is the Fender coily cable, the old one, not the actual one, the big one. This is the old one. So let's listen to the three coily cables. Lava Retrocoil. Okay, so you hear they are not all the same cables. Let me turn on the clean tone so you can hear it on the neck pickup of the tele. This is the Fender cable. Right? So, although they are all coily cables, they are not the same. They sound very different, even being coily. So, what are your thoughts? Cables sound really different, and I'm not trying to show you what's the best cable because it's up to you to decide. I have my favorite cables, and actually the Lava Retrocoil is my go-to cable whenever I plug and I play single coil guitars like my Telly. But the Sinasoid has a great thing on it. The David Laboga is another great thing. I've been playing the David Laboga home. I want to thank David Laboga Sinasoid cables, Arda Audio, for sending the cables to me to test. The Lava cables, I'm representing Lava cables in Portugal, and I'm selling them for a long time. I love the cables. I use the solderless cables. I use usually the Retrocoil, the Ultramafic. I usually use this one from my guitar to the pedals, this one to the amps. Sometimes I use the Ultramafic, but I'm actually being really in love by the Sinasoid, the Damme, and the David Laboga. I've been playing all the cables, and they sound really good in different situations. In the studio, I sometimes, when I overdub guitar, so when I record a guitar part and then I will record another part with the same guitar, same amp, I change the cable to give it just a little different flavor. Also, when I have musicians in the studio, bass players, guitar players, I usually ask them to go through cables and to check which is their flavor, because usually musicians don't really care about cables, and it is such an important part of the tone. It's the first thing your guitar pickups see on their way to the amp or to the pedals. So the cable is super important. It will change the character of your guitar, will change the feel of your guitar. It changes a lot. And I have a great story. When we went to play in Israel, I went to a music store, a big music store, and they had 1959 Les Paul reissue. It's an R9, so it's a custom shop Les Paul. I played the guitar and I was blown away. I played it through Tweed Blues Junior, which I thought I would know, at least I would know it better. I played it through the Blues Junior and I loved the guitar. The high end on that Les Paul was incredible. I thought about bringing it home a lot. But then I stopped and I thought, let me just come here tomorrow and bring my Lava cable that I really know. I know the amp, I know the cable, I just don't know the guitar, so I will cut all the variables. And I went there, I plugged it into my Lava cable, and it was a normal Les Paul. So I was like, okay, so probably Les Pauls don't like the Retrocoil cable. That's why I'm probably not liking mine that much. When I come back to Portugal, I plug in with the Retrocoil and the Damme cable, which was the one that I had, the David Laboga cable, and it was there. There was a magic Les Paul. So I gained a new guitar. When I was playing with Shirley King, for example, I took my Lava cable Retrocoil and the Ultramafic. I was playing through my Supro Thunderbolt, which doesn't have a lot of headroom, so it was overdriving the starting, almost fuzzing out. I was a little worried because I didn't have enough headroom. I plugged into the low input of the Thunderbolt. I was trying a lot of things, but it was distorting a lot. So I thought, let me just plug with the Ultramafic cable instead of using the Retrocoil. And it solved the problem, because the Retrocoil was compressing and it was darkening the guitar too much. So it was fattening up, it was making it sound less clear. So the Ultramafic solved the problem. So I always carry different cables. Now I have this, where is it? I have this monster cable, coily cable, and the Lava. I always have both on my cable bag, because sometimes this is too much and I will use this. This is a little brighter, a little more open. So sometimes I need that openness because the amp is already dark or the room is dark. So cables are super critical to your tone. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the cables. What is your favorite cable? Do you use another brand that I don't know or that I don't use here? Let me know what your thoughts. Did you ever knew guitar cables were that crucial to guitar tone? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, to leave your thumbs up. Also, if you want to have some guitar lessons with me, just send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, or send it to the mail. I will be more than happy to talk to you and to try to teach you some things to develop what you want. I don't have a plan on guitar lessons. I usually go with what my students want to learn and try to help them to develop that thing. Also, you can support the channel by becoming a patron on Patreon. So just go to the link, or if you want to support the channel, you can also do it by sending money via PayPal. Thank you so much. We'll see each other next week. Bye-bye.